The snow falls in thick, cottony flakes as I steer my car along the winding Vermont roads. Each curve takes me farther from Boston, from quarterly reports and client emergencies, from the constant ping of notifications that have dominated my existence for the past 3 months. With every mile, my shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. 10 days, I whisper to myself, the words fogging in the chilly air of my car. 10 days of absolute quiet. The dashboard clock reads 2:17 p.m. I'm making good time, better than expected given the weather. My cabin waits just 20 minutes ahead, my sanctuary, my reward for years of careful budgeting and overtime. Unlike most of my colleagues who blow their bonuses on weekend getaways to New York or designer handbags, I've always played the long game. 2 properties by 32. Not bad for a marketing manager from a middle-class background, with no inheritance to speak of. Well, no financial inheritance, the weight of responsibility that was handed down in spades. The evergreens lining the road wear heavy white coats, their branches dipping under the burden. I know that feeling. 5 years as Tessa's caretaker has taught me plenty about carrying weight. I love my sister, but Christmas has become a particular challenge. Her neediness intensifies with the holidays, her demands for attention multiplying like the twinkling lights strung across the city. This year, I chose myself. 10 days of solitude. Tessa pouted when I told her my plans, but she's 26 now. She has Derek. She doesn't need me monitoring her gift list or hosting her friends for Christmas Eve cocktails. The cabin appears around the final bend, nestled against the mountainside like a postcard scene. My grip on the steering wheel tightens when I spot not 1 but 2 vehicles in the circular driveway, Tessa's cherry-red Jeep and a mud-splattered pickup truck I don't recognize. What the hell? What? My first thought is a break-in. My second is that something happened to Tessa, some emergency that drove her here. My pulse quickens as I park behind the Jeep and grab my phone, ready to call 911 if needed. The cabin windows glow with warm light. Music drifts through the walls, not the soft jazz I left playing on my smart speaker during my last visit, but Christmas pop tunes cranked to party volume. I trudge through ankle-deep snow to the porch, key in hand, though I suspect I won't need it. When I turn the knob, the door swings open to reveal a scene so surreal I momentarily wonder if I've driven to the wrong cabin. A Christmas tree, not my tasteful pine with white lights and silver ornaments, but a massive spruce dripping with gaudy multicolored baubles dominates the corner by the fireplace. Garlands snake across every surface. Scented candles burn on the coffee table, competing aromas of cinnamon and pine, creating a cloying cloud. And people. So many people. Strangers sprawled across my furniture, drinking from the hand-blown crystal wine glasses I gave Tessa last Christmas. A middle-aged couple I've never met occupy my reading chair. 3 20-somethings crowd around the kitchen island, mixing drinks in my grandmother's punch bowl. In the center of it all stands Tessa, her blonde hair twisted into an elaborate updo, wearing a red sweater I recognize from my own closet. Beside her, Derek laughs with a man who shares his square jaw and receding hairline, his father, I assume. The laughter dies instantly when the door clicks shut behind me. Heads swivel in my direction. Glasses pause midway to lips. The Christmas music continues its cheerful assault, now an absurd soundtrack to the frozen tableau. My eyes lock on the mantelpiece where my parents' photo should be. Instead, a framed portrait of Derek's family beams back at me. Mom and Dad, relegated to a side table, partially hidden behind a poinsettia. Oh, Tessa's voice breaks the silence. Her eyes widen with recognition, but not surprise. Not guilt. You're early. I figured you'd be somewhere fancier, New York. Maybe Aspen. The room remains silent. Derek shifts his weight, staring at the floor. Anyway, Tessa continues, her voice dripping with that familiar passive aggression she's perfected since childhood. It's nice you came back to our cabin. Our cabin. The words hit me like a physical blow. I survey the room more carefully, the suitcases stacked in the corner, mail scattered on the entry table, Derek's jacket hanging on the hook that's always held mine. This isn't a party. This is someone living in my home. A memory surfaces. My 10th birthday party, canceled because Tessa had fallen ill with a cold. Nothing serious, just enough for my mother to decide my celebration could wait. It never happened. Protect Tessa. Mom's voice echoes in my head. She's weaker than you. She needs more care. I've spent a lifetime absorbing that message, putting Tessa's needs before my own. The pattern established early, reinforced daily, until sacrifice became my default setting. But standing here now, watching strangers make themselves comfortable in the space I created for myself. Something shifts inside me. A crack forms in the foundation of obligation I've built my life upon. For the first time, I wonder if protection has become enabling. If care has morphed into something unhealthy for us both. The music plays on. Tessa watches me, challenge in her eyes. And I stand at the threshold of my own home, suddenly uncertain whether I should enter or retreat. I stand in the doorway of my own cabin, the Christmas music still blaring as everyone stares. The silence between us stretches like taffy, sweet expectations turning bitter. My fingernails dig into my palms, grounding me against the storm building inside. Tessa's eyes narrow slightly, challenging me to make a scene. She expects it, the lecture, the shouting, the drama. It's our familiar dance, her pushing boundaries until I explode, then playing victim to my overreaction. Not today. I scan the room slowly, cataloging each violation. Derek's parents occupy my reading chair, wine glasses balanced on the armrests where rings will surely form. Their faces transition from holiday cheer to confused concern as the seconds tick by. The woman, June, I recall from Tessa's wedding introduction, clutches her cardigan closed like armor. We didn't know. June stammers, looking between Tessa and me. Tessa said you gave permission, that you wanted them to use the cabin for the holidays. A small, bitter laugh threatens to escape my throat. Of course she did. Derek stares at the floor, shoulders hunched. His thumb worries the edge of his watch band, a nervous habit I've noticed at family gatherings. He knows. He always knows when Tessa lies, yet never stops her. I believe you, I say, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. I address June and her husband directly, ignoring my sister completely. But I'll be clear, you have 24 hours to leave this house and restore it to how it was. The room temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. A glass clinks against a table as someone sets their drink down too quickly. If it's not spotless when I return, I'll call the police. The words leave my mouth without heat or venom. Simple facts, delivered calmly. Tessa freezes, wine glass halfway to her lips. This isn't how our script usually plays out. I'm supposed to yell, to plead, to negotiate, giving her the emotional fuel she craves. Instead, I stand perfectly still, saying nothing more. The silence speaks volumes where screaming would have failed. I had no idea she'd do this, Derek mumbles, finally looking up. His eyes hold genuine remorse, but it's too little, too late. How many times has he apologized for her behavior without actually preventing it? June rises quickly, nudging her husband's arm. We should pack our things, Richard. Her voice has the strained politeness of someone desperate to exit an uncomfortable situation. She begins gathering scattered belongings, shooting worried glances at Tessa. The others follow suit, abandoning half-empty glasses and Christmas cookies mid-bite. Nobody meets my gaze except Tessa, whose disbelief has hardened into something closer to fear. She's realized I'm not bluffing this time. I don't engage. No arguments, no justifications, no opportunity for her to spin this into another tale of my supposed controlling nature. I simply turn, close the door softly behind me, and walk back to my car. Snow falls in thick flakes, catching in my hair and melting against my heated skin. Each step through the growing whiteness feels deliberate, ceremonial almost. Behind me stands the cabin I purchased after 3 years of working 60-hour weeks. Ahead lies a future where, for once, I put myself first. I drive away without looking back, watching the glow of my cabin disappear in the rearview mirror. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm as I navigate the mountain roads, each turn taking me further from a lifetime of enabling. 2 hours later, I pull into a small roadside motel, with a vacancy sign flickering against the darkening sky. The room is basic but clean, nothing like my carefully curated cabin, yet somehow a sanctuary. I make a cup of instant coffee from the courtesy tray and sit by the window, watching snowflakes swirl beneath the street lamp. My anger burns hot initially, thoughts racing through everything taken from me, not just my property, but years of giving without boundaries. As midnight approaches, the fire dims to embers, leaving exhaustion in its wake. By dawn, something else emerges from the ashes. Clarity. This isn't about them taking my house. I whisper to my reflection in the frosted window. It's about them believing I'd never stop them. Steam from my coffee cup fogs the glass as I begin a mental inventory of all the times I've accommodated Tessa beyond reason. The apartment in Burlington where I covered half her rent for 3 years while she found herself. The car loans I co-signed, despite her spotty credit history and tendency to prioritize vacations over payments. The company reputation I leveraged to help Derek's parents secure their mortgage after their bankruptcy. The pattern emerges with painful clarity. My promise to protect Tessa, made at our parents' funeral, transformed into chains, binding us both, me to endless giving, her to endless taking. What began as responsibility morphed into something ugly and distorted. I remember the look in Tessa's eyes when she said, "our cabin." Not gratitude, not even entitlement, but something darker, resentment. As if my help were simultaneously expected and resented, each gift a reminder of her dependence. For the first time, I see how my protection has become her prison, and my sacrifice her sentence. We're trapped in roles neither of us chose but both perpetuate. The coffee grows cold in my hands as snow continues falling, covering everything in clean white. Tomorrow I'll return to the cabin, unsure whether they'll have complied or escalated, but regardless of what awaits, something fundamental has shifted. The chain is broken. Whether Tessa recognizes it yet or not, everything has changed. Next day, my phone buzzes on the nightstand, pulling me from deep sleep. I squint at the screen, the morning light filtering through cabin windows, making it hard to read the text from Tessa. "We left. The cabin's cleaned. I'm sorry." I sit up, fully awake now. The cabin feels different, quieter, emptier. I slip into my robe and venture into the living room, bracing for the aftermath of Hurricane Tessa. What I find instead stops me in my tracks. The cabin gleams with cleanliness. Not a cushion out of place, not a speck of dust on the coffee table. Even the kitchen counters shine like they've been polished repeatedly. The Christmas decorations Tessa and Derek's family had strewn everywhere gone. The gaudy tree vanished. Above the fireplace, my parents' photo has been restored to its rightful place. I walk closer, noticing how perfectly centered it is, as if measured with a ruler. The glass has been cleaned so thoroughly it almost disappears. I wander from room to room, finding each one returned to pristine condition. The stillness feels almost supernatural, as if nothing happened here, as if the invasion never took place. The only evidence of their presence is this uncanny perfection, this overcorrection that speaks of guilt. Later that evening, I build a fire in the hearth and open a bottle of Cabernet I'd been saving for a special occasion. This feels like one. I settle into my favorite chair and raise my glass to the empty room. "To boundaries," I whisper. The flames dance in the fireplace, casting warm light across the living room, my living room. For the first time in years, I'm experiencing a holiday without the weight of obligation pressing down on my shoulders, without the gnawing guilt that accompanies every moment I claim for myself. This peace feels like victory. I savor the wine, letting it linger on my tongue. Something deeper than temporary satisfaction takes root inside me. This isn't just about winning a single battle with Tessa. This is about reclaiming my life. The next few days unfold in quiet reflection. I analyze the pattern that's defined our relationship since our parents died. Each morning, I sit by the window with coffee, watching snow fall on the pines, while mentally cataloging every instance I enabled Tessa's dependency. The discounted rent on her apartment, my justification had been that she needed help getting started. The monthly payments on her Jeep Compass, I convinced myself it was safer than her old car. The credit card with my name as guarantor just until she established good credit, I'd told myself. With distance and clarity, I see now how my compassion without boundaries created entitlement. Each act of generosity became not a gift, but an expectation. Each sacrifice on my part reinforced the idea that her needs trumped mine. A plan forms in my mind, methodical and necessary. Not revenge. I take no pleasure in what must happen next, but a systematic dismantling of the unhealthy structures I helped build. I open my laptop and begin the process. First, an email to Tessa's property manager terminating the arrangement where I subsidize her rent. Next, a call to the auto loan company, canceling automatic payments on the Jeep. I draft formal letters ending my financial guarantees on her credit cards and utilities. My correspondence remains professional and detached. No emotional outbursts, no recriminations. Just clear statements of fact. Effective immediately, I will no longer be responsible for these obligations. 3 days later, the first consequence arrives in my inbox. The subject line reads, "Tessa Miller is behind on rent." My finger hovers over the delete button. Old habits whisper that I should intervene, make it right, protect Tessa from consequences. Instead, I type, follow the lease, send the 14-day non-payment notice. I pause before adding, file eviction if necessary, no exceptions. After sending the email, I feel the familiar twist of guilt in my stomach. I breathe through it, reminding myself that this isn't cruelty but necessity for both of us. 3 weeks later, another email arrives with the subject line, vehicle repossession completed. Attached is a photo of Tessa's white Jeep being loaded onto a tow truck. Snow falling around it in the gloomy twilight. I delete the email without responding, without feeling anything beyond a quiet acknowledgement. The guilt is fading, replaced by something that feels like strength. The final day of my retreat, I reorganize the cabin. I open closets and drawers, finding items Tessa left behind over the years. A scarf draped over a hook, earrings forgotten on a bathroom shelf, novels with dog-eared pages stacked by the guest bed. I gather them all, placing them in a box I'll mail to her address. I move furniture, changing the layout to better suit my preferences. I replace throw pillows, hang new artwork, create a reading nook in the corner where Derek's family had piled their luggage. With each adjustment, the space transforms, becoming truly mine without compromise. As the sun sets on my final evening, I stand in the center of the cabin. The physical space now reflects the boundaries I've established in my life, clear, intentional, and necessary. For the first time in years, I can breathe without the weight of resentment pressing against my ribs. This isn't just a cabin anymore, it's freedom. A month passes like sand through an hourglass, each grain another day when the phone doesn't ring. The silence feels strange after years of Tessa's constant needs draining my attention. I've filled the vacuum with simple pleasures, reading books that have gathered dust on my nightstand, attending a cooking class downtown, reconnecting with friends who learned long ago to stop inviting me to impromptu gatherings. My phone vibrates against the coffee table, Tessa's name lighting up the screen. The peace I've cultivated trembles like disturbed water. I consider letting it go to voicemail, but habit wins out. Reagan? Her voice splinters around my name. Thank God you answered. I press the phone closer. What's wrong? Everything. A dam breaks in her words, releasing a torrent of grievances. Derek's mother called me lazy, said I don't contribute anything to their household. And Derek just stood there. He didn't defend me at all. I hear cupboard doors slamming in the background, footsteps pacing across hardwood. Then Derek started in on me too, saying I need to grow up, get a job, that I can't expect to be taken care of forever. Her breath hitches. He brought up the cabin, said I embarrassed him in front of his family. The old alarm bells ring inside me. Familiar energy pulses through my veins, the urge to fix, to smooth over, to make everything okay for Tessa. I press my palm against the cool window pane, watching snowflakes melt against the glass. Please, Reagan. Her voice drops to the pleading whisper that has worked on me since we were children. I just need one last chance. Help me fix this. Tell Derek I'm trying. Let me come stay with you for a while until things settle down. I close my eyes. The pattern reveals itself with painful clarity. The crisis, the plea, my rescue, temporary gratitude dissolving into expectation, and eventually, resentment. A cycle we've repeated my entire adult life. You're 31, Tessa. The words emerge calm and steady, surprising even me. I'm not your mother. Silence crackles between us. What's that supposed to mean? Defensiveness edges into her voice. It means I can't fix your marriage. Or your relationship with Derek's family. I take a deep breath. You need to take responsibility for your own life. No lecture follows. No list of suggestions. Just the truth, finally spoken aloud. The silence stretches until I wonder if the call has dropped. Then Tessa's voice returns, transformed into something sharp and brittle. You ruined everything. The words explode through the speaker. If it weren't for you, my life wouldn't be like this. I hold the phone away from my ear as she continues. You always think you know better than everyone else. You're the reason I never learned to handle things. You made me dependent, and now you want to abandon me when I need you most. Behind her accusations, other sounds filter through drawers yanked open, objects thudding against walls, a home coming apart. Don't blame your sister, you did this to yourself. Derek's voice cuts in, startling me. I hadn't realized he was listening. Stay out of this. Tessa screams, her voice receding as if she's turned away from the phone. No, I'm done staying out of it. Derek counters. Your sister's right. You're a grown woman, but you act like a teenager waiting for someone to clean up your messes. Their argument escalates, words tumbling over each other like stones in a landslide. Something crashes glass, shattering against a hard surface. Look what you made me do, Tessa shrieks. More crashes follow, punctuated by Derek's demands to stop destroying things that aren't hers. I listen, neither intervening nor hanging up. This isn't my storm to weather. The call cuts off abruptly. The sudden silence feels heavy, weighted with years of expectations finally released. I place the phone on the table beside me. No urge rises to call back, to check that Tessa is okay, to smooth things over. Instead, I exhale slowly, feeling the last threads of misplaced responsibility unravel from my shoulders. Everything has collapsed naturally, without my orchestration. The weight of consequences belongs to Tessa alone, as it should have all along. Relief washes through me, not because I want her to suffer, but because I no longer have to prevent the inevitable. The news reaches me 3 weeks later through Mark, a mutual friend from our hometown. Derek filed for divorce. Tessa lost her apartment when his parents, who owned the property, asked her to leave. The car she drove belonged to Derek's company. Her reputation in their social circle lies in tatters after a public meltdown at a restaurant where many of their friends witnessed her behavior firsthand. I take no satisfaction in her suffering. Each revelation arrives without the vindication some might expect. Instead, I feel a quiet acceptance. Sometimes people must hit bottom before they can discover their own strength. Winter gradually releases its grip on Boston. March brings warmer air and tentative buds on the trees lining my street. The seasons change, and so do we, whether we choose to or not. The last snow melts from the shadowed corners of my yard, when my phone rings again. Tessa's name appears on the screen, a test of boundaries newly formed. This time, I answer without apprehension. Reagan. Her voice trembles, but differently than before. Humbler, smaller. I'm sorry. Please just give me one more chance. I stand at my window, watching a robin gather twigs for its nest. Spring arrives, bringing with it the possibility of new beginnings, but only for those willing to build them with their own hands. I'm listening, I say, and I mean it. For the first time in our adult lives, I'm truly listening to my sister instead of rushing to rescue her. What happens next depends entirely on her. 3 days later, the morning light filters through the cabin windows, catching dust motes that dance like memories in the air. I sit in the window seat, watching as droplets of snow melt from the eaves, each one surrendering to the inevitable thaw. The lake beyond has begun to shed its icy coating, revealing patches of clarity underneath, much like the fog lifting from my own thoughts these past few weeks. Tessa sits across from me, her fingers wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. 3 months of silence between us, broken by a phone call that surprised us both. No screaming match at the cabin that day. No dramatic showdown. Just me, turning around and driving back to Boston, leaving Tessa to the consequences of her choices for once. You look different, she says, studying me with the careful attention she usually reserves for potential advantages. I am different. The words come easily, without the defensive edge that once would have accompanied them. She traces the rim of her mug, searching for the right approach. I recognize the gesture, the precursor to a request, a need, another burden she hopes to place on my shoulders. But something has shifted between us, a recalibration of an unbalanced scale. I used to be the place you came home to, I say softly, surprising myself with the gentle honesty of it, the safety net always waiting to catch you. Her eyes widen slightly. This isn't our usual script. Now you need to stand on your own. I hold her gaze, unflinching yet kind. The day you do that, I'll be the first to be proud of you. Silence settles between us, not the tense quiet of unspoken resentments, but something closer to respect. For once, we both allow the moment to breathe, honoring what's been lost and what might yet be found. I rise and move to the kitchen, returning with the bottle of Pinot Noir I've been saving. Not as a crutch this time, but as recognition. I pour 2 glasses, handing one to Tessa. What are we celebrating? She asks, wariness creeping into her voice. Freedom, I answer. Yours and mine. We sip our wine and watch the last snowdrops melt from the eaves, disappearing into the awakening earth below. Later, as Tessa prepares to leave, I realize something profound has settled in my chest where guilt once lived. The understanding that love transforms rather than ends, that it evolves beyond codependency into something healthier. The freedom I've given Tessa and myself might be the highest form of respect I could offer either of us. The revelation lands with surprising gentleness. Sometimes helping means not helping at all. The weight of responsibility I've carried since our parents' death hasn't vanished, but it's shifted, redistributed to shoulders better suited to bear it her own. Relief replaces guilt as my dominant emotion, flowing through me like a spring thaw after the longest winter. When I return to work the following Monday, Janet notices immediately. "You seem different," she says, echoing Tessa's observation as we prepare for the morning meeting. "More present." I smile, arranging my notes with a confidence that feels new yet familiar, like rediscovering a part of myself long neglected. "I've established some boundaries." "Well, it suits you." She pauses at the conference room door. "By the way, Parker wants to see you after this. Something about the Westridge account." The Westridge account, our biggest client, traditionally handled by senior managers. My pulse quickens as I take my seat at the table. 2 hours later, I stand in Parker's office, as he offers me the promotion I'd once believed impossible while juggling Tessa's constant crises. "Your presentation last month sealed it," he explains. "That kind of assertiveness, that clarity of vision, that's exactly what Westridge responds to." My colleagues notice the shift in my presence, in my authority. Lunch invitations multiply. Collaborative projects that once felt like burdens now spark creativity. Success no longer compromised by family drama waiting in my inbox or voicemail. I begin reaching out to friends I'd neglected during the Tessa years. Coffee with Marlene turns into dinner with her and her husband. A weekend hiking trip with my college roommate Julie reveals how much I've missed these connections, built on mutual respect rather than obligation. "I worried about you," Julie admits as we rest on a fallen log, water bottles in hand. "You disappeared into Tessa's problems. It was like watching someone drown in slow motion." The honesty stings, but not in the way it once would have. "I thought I was being strong," I tell her, "taking care of everyone. And now? Now I know strength isn't about carrying everything. It's about knowing what's yours to carry." We build this chosen family beyond blood obligations. People who want my presence rather than need my rescue. The email from Tessa arrives 3 months after our cabin conversation. No dramatic subject line, no urgent plea. Just her name in my inbox on a Tuesday afternoon. I read it between meetings, braced for the familiar manipulation. Instead, I find a simple update about a new job, an apartment search. No requests, no emotional blackmail. The first signs of genuine independence, emerging from the ashes of our old patterns. My response is careful, thoughtful. I suggest coffee the following week, with clear parameters. 2 hours on Saturday afternoon, at the cafe near her new workplace. A relationship reset, adults meeting as equals, without the shadow of caretaking darkening our interaction. As I hit send, I recognize the unfamiliar emotion rising in my chest. Hope, without the heavy companion of expectation. Hope, without the burden of responsibility. Just hope, standing on its own, much like Tessa must now do. And like the final snowdrops melting from the eaves of my cabin, the last vestiges of our unhealthy bond dissolve, making way for something new to grow in its place. 6 months have transformed the cabin beyond recognition. I run my fingertips along the newly installed security system panel, appreciating how it blends seamlessly with the rustic wood paneling. The motion sensors outside give me peace of mind without making the place feel like a fortress. Balance, that's what I've finally found. The invasion left no physical traces. Every item Derek's family touched has been cleaned, replaced, or deliberately rearranged according to my preferences rather than obligation. The mantelpiece now displays Mom and Dad's photo front and center, flanked by smaller frames showing moments that spark joy. Summiting Mount Washington last fall, laughing with colleagues at the company retreat, and a candid shot of me painting the kitchen Cabernet red because I wanted to, not because anyone else approved. I light the scented candle lavender and cedar, my favorite combination that Tessa always complained gave her headaches, and survey the living room. The furniture arrangement now optimizes the view of Vermont mountains rather than television viewing. My collection of first edition mysteries fills the bookshelf instead of being hidden away to make room for others' preferences. Every element reflects authentic choices, not compromises. The timer on my phone chimes. Guests arrive in 30 minutes, my first dinner party here since reclaiming the space. 8 friends from work and my hiking group will fill these rooms with conversation. The table is set with mismatched vintage plates I've collected from small-town antique shops. Another choice that would have horrified Tessa's sense of proper entertaining. Later, my cabin hums with laughter. Wine glasses clink as Lauren raises a toast. To Reagan, she says, her voice warm with sincerity, who reminds us all of the importance of boundaries, courage, and chosen family. 8 glasses rise in unison. The approval in their eyes doesn't feel like pressure, it feels like recognition. These relationships demand nothing but authenticity. Marcus, our company's creative director, leans back in his chair. My roommate tried reorganizing my record collection by color instead of artist last week, nearly filed for divorce. Everyone laughs, including me. 6 months ago, a comment about problematic roommates would have triggered a spiral of anxiety, memories of Tessa's invasion flooding back. Tonight it's just a joke among friends. Same situation, completely different emotional response. After dessert, while everyone gravitates toward the fireplace with fresh drinks, I slip away to the kitchen, breathing space, another boundary I've learned to create without apology. Through the doorway, I watch them laughing, existing comfortably in my space without consuming it. The contrast with Derek's family sprawled possessively across these same rooms couldn't be more stark. The next morning, with the cabin quiet again, I open my leather-bound journal on the sunlit deck. The spring air carries hints of pine and possibility. I write, "Love doesn't require sacrifice of self. The greatest gift I've given myself is permission to exist fully, without apology or compression. I am not defined by being Tessa's bigger sister, by carrying everyone's emotional weight, by making myself smaller so others feel bigger." The pen moves easily across the page, recording this truth I've finally embraced. For decades, responsibility meant abandoning my needs for others. Therapy has reframed this entirely, showing me that true responsibility begins with self-care, extends to boundaries, and only then reaches toward others. The cabin phone rings. I answer without checking caller ID, another sign of progress. "Reagan? It's Dr. Norris confirming next Tuesday." "Looking forward to it," I reply, genuinely meaning it. Weekly therapy has become sacred time, rather than a shameful secret. We've unpacked family patterns going back generations, the martyr complex passed from my grandmother to my mother to me, the way Tessa learned helplessness as her role in our family drama. Work has flourished without emotional distractions. Last month's promotion came partly because I stopped volunteering for every crisis project, focusing instead on quality contributions within reasonable hours. Saying no created space for deeper yes. New friendships have replaced the draining connections that once filled my calendar. Quality over quantity, another lesson hard won. Each relationship now stands on bedrock of mutual respect rather than obligations shifting sand. 2 weeks later, in the break room at work, Kelly, a junior marketing associate, approaches me cautiously. "Do you have a minute?" she asks, clutching her coffee mug like a shield. We sit at the small table by the window. She explains her situation, parents insisting on weekly Sunday dinners, despite her partner feeling increasingly unwelcome, the guilt crushing her each time she considers declining. "You always seem so together," she says, "like you know where your boundaries are." The irony makes me smile. That's fairly recent. 6 months ago, I found my sister living in my vacation home without permission. Kelly's eyes widen. "What did you do?" "Something I should have done years earlier. I realized I can love people from a distance. Physical, emotional, whatever distance necessary for health." The words flow not from wounded pride but from hard-earned wisdom. Sometimes the kindest thing for everyone is saying no. She nods slowly, processing. That's exactly what I need to hear. Later that evening, my phone buzzes with a text. Tessa's name appears on screen, no longer triggering fight-or-flight response. "Hey, thinking about taking some online classes. Community college has a business program. Would you mind looking at the course list when you have time? No rush." I read it twice, noting what's missing. Demands, guilt trips, urgency. Her request is small, reasonable, and includes acknowledgement of my time. I set the phone down, promising myself I'll respond thoughtfully tomorrow, rather than dropping everything immediately. The seeds of a healthier relationship might be sprouting, not guaranteed, but possible. Either way, I'm prepared, able to engage or disengage as needed. The Vermont sunset paints mountains in amber and rose as I settle into the Adirondack chair on my deck. Journal open on my lap, glass of Cabernet in hand. I write the day's final reflection. Love remains. Boundaries just show where it begins and ends. A distant ringtone carries through the open door behind me. My pulse remains steady, breath even. Whatever crisis or connection awaits on that call, it can wait until I'm ready to answer. The anxiety that once drove me to immediate response has transformed into quiet assurance. The peace I feel isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of wholeness. Would you like to share a time when you had to choose between pleasing family and protecting yourself? What did you learn from it? I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below.